Okay. By my watch, it's 2 o'clock, so we'll start. Good afternoon, everyone, or good day, depending on where in the world you're joining us. It's myself today and my colleague Addy. I am Barbara. I run the operations. I'm the operations director at UniAdmissions. I have worked with students for over the last 6 years. And I tutor as well in the humanities area. So I am a historian, ancient historian, and archaeology. But I do operations as my full-time role.
I'm Addy. So my video is not showing for some reason. So I just sent Barbara a message. Hopefully we can get that resolved in a moment. But I look after the marketing team at UniAdmissions. So we do lots and lots of research. We get lots and lots of data, and we put together the kind of technical side of what we actually do to support students. So I'll be sticking around to help with the Q&A, and yeah, I'll be here to help.
Addy, do you want to try now on your video?
Yeah, sure. There we go. Nice, we're all sorted.
Super. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can either raise your hand. There's a little raise your hand option on the Zoom bar, or you can pop it into the chat and we'll try to kind of answer them as we go along, or at the end as well. So personal statement and SAQ is this week. And next week, if you wanted to know and join us again, it's how to approach science admissions tests. So those would be things like your NSAA and your NGAR, MAT, PAT. So we're going to go into personal statements. Why do they exist? Good question. How do I write a great one? And we also have some examples of personal statements. So personal statements. You have probably heard them or heard these two words a number of times. Your student schools have probably asked them to start writing them. Some schools we know have already asked for the first submissions. And some students, some eager beavers, have already actually submitted their personal statements. The deadline for personal statements for Oxbridge is the 15th of October. For all other universities, it's the 15th of January the following year. So why do they exist? Simple. It was introduced in the 1990s alongside with University Access Expansion, and it was done under UCAS. UCAS are actually a charity. It helps universities to choose between otherwise very similarly qualified applicants. So what that means is that we have, UCAS processes literally thousands of applicants every single year, and the majority of them will have very, very similar grades. So the only thing that differentiates them at that point is their name and what school they go to. It also allows you as a student to show exactly why you want to study that subject. Why do you want to go into higher academia and study medicine, physics, economics, history? Why that? Why there? And it also makes the application process a little bit more kind of human. It's not just a numbers game at this point. It's also, taking into account why, the love that students have for that. Why do they want to go there? Why do they want to study that? And it kind of allows the admissions teams to build a picture and an image of you as a student. Why are they so hard to write? So we work with students every single year, and this is the time of year where they really start to panic and worry. And the reason for that is because they've never written anything like it before. It's really, really hard and difficult to write about yourself. If you've ever sat down and started to want to write, the story of your life, it's not easy. And everything kind of it gets very awkward. And the argument of the writing is implicit rather than explicit. So it's not an essay based. It's not a debate. It's not anything that students might be very, very used to writing to on a day-to-day basis inside school for their exams and for coursework, homework, things like that. This is something where you've really got to kind of almost boast about yourself. You've really got to show the love that the love that the student has for their subject. And that's really difficult to do. And in addition to that, you have a limit on doing it. So you only have I think it's 1,200 characters to do it, and those characters include spaces. And by spaces, I mean between each word. So every letter is a character, every space is a character, and every new paragraph is also counted as a character space. So it's really tough, and they matter because applications consistently overrate the personal statement. They matter because within the UCAS application that you do, the personal statement is one element of it. However, there is also the element of the school reference, which the school will write. Now, I know that we have a few students who are applicants, who are individual applicants, and so the school won't necessarily receive the UCAS login directly. It will be with the student, but it is really, really important. And overall, it's not going to be the decisive factor, or it's very unlikely that it will be a decisive factor when it comes to getting an interview, or when it comes to the admissions tutor's final decision of who should be awarded a place and who shouldn't. And I just wanted to put down there the 1,200 characters because a lot of students really start to panic with that as well. It's really, really difficult. You write it, your initial draft, you write it down, you think, yeah, that's awesome. And then you've got to look at it again and again and again, and get it down to those characters.
Yes, I think we've just had a quick message in the chat. I think that one's actually about the SAQ. So it's a 4,000 character limit for the personal statement and 47 lines as well. So whichever comes first. Yeah. So I think that was just a little mess up in the presentation. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, sorry, that's my fault there. We're moving on to the SAQs momentarily. So writing a great personal statement needs to be broken down essentially into 4 key areas: your introduction, so about you, something punchy about why this subject, what you're about, why do you want to go into university, academic ability, your extracurriculars or your supercurriculars, and also a conclusion at the end that kind of gives them a really nice rounded picture. This is roughly how it should be broken up. Oh, sorry, yeah, there it is, 4,000 characters, or 47 lines. So the introduction should only really be about 6 lines. The academic should be kind of no more than 27, extracurricular no more than 12, and the conclusion no more than 4. So really the conclusion is pretty much a sentence. The extracurricular is a couple, and then the introduction as well, a couple of sentences, and the academia or the academic section that is the most critical. What makes a great personal statement? This takes a lot of work. You have to have a very clear passion for why you want to, or the subject that you want to study at university. Studying a subject at A-level and then going and studying it at university is a completely different ballgame. And students need to be aware of that, really. It's a much more in-depth, and they need to be able to acknowledge that and do the research ahead of it, which then means that they need to have clear evidence supporting their wish or their passion to go and study that subject at university. And that can come from, their passion for it can stem from all sorts of different areas, from books, ideas from other applicants. It can also come from, from experiences, from perhaps, a conference that they've gone to, or a speech that they've listened to, or some role model in their lives that has kind of driven them to want to experience more from that topic and learn more about it. If the writing must be clear and effective, punctuation, grammar, spelling, everything has to be 100%, or absolutely perfect, spot on. And they also must make sure that they are very concise, simply because the characters just won't allow you to do it otherwise. And they have to get your personality through. So writing a very black and white, black and white's the wrong word, but just a really standard. I've seen a lot of personal statements where students are writing as though they're 60 years old with with a library of words that they would never use. And even sometimes I read them and I go, I have no idea what you're talking about. No idea. There's words in there that they wouldn't use. Please don't do that. It does not help you. Admissions tutor needs to understand who you are as a person. Why do you love that subject? Why do you want to study it more? So using fancy words that you wouldn't use otherwise on a day-to-day basis isn't going to help your personal statement.
Yeah, I think it's really nice because you do see a lot of vanilla statements that which is probably the word that you're probably looking for. There's like research that's been done for the most popular opening lines, and you'd be surprised at how many of them just come through. From a young age, I've always been interested in, and that doesn't make an impact anymore. So it's so important to do it personally, as it should be for you.
Yeah, and you need to write in a way that you would. So the way that I always tell my students is, okay, you've got to write it as though you're talking to me. I don't know anything about you. You need to explain yourself to me in a way that you would if we were having a cup of coffee and just talking in a relaxed environment. So coming up with these these cliche sayings and massive long words which nobody understands. It's a bit like Joey from Friends plucking out the thesaurus. It does not help. So we're going to go into some examples. So here's example number one. I'll read it out, but I'm sure you can let me know if you can't see it. So for me, medicine offers an academically and mentally challenging profession, which amalgamates my fascination with the human body and my desire to work with a variety of individuals with their own individual problems on a day-to-day basis. It offers a chance to make a real difference to the lives of others. Boring. It's bog standard, day-to-day, really have a fascination with the human body. Okay, great. Which teenager doesn't? A variety of individual problems on a day-to-day basis. It's really bog standard. It's something that you'll read and forget. It's pretty pretentious. It's trying to be it's what did you call it, Addy? Vanilla.
Yeah.
There's nothing here that offers any real insight. I could say that. A teenager next to me, a student next to me could say that.
Yeah, I think for me this one's I think for me this one's quite wordy, and basically every medicine applicant really likes the application of science and the human body. That's almost a given for the subject. So it's really difficult to use that to set yourself apart. So yeah, for me it's not a particularly strong opener in this case.
Okay, we'll move on to another one. So in the summer of 2008, my grandfather was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. At the tender age of 11, I was oblivious to the neurological disorder's implications. On a sunny afternoon that summer, my father suddenly collapsed and had a seizure in the cold food section of a supermarket. I had never been as terrified as I was when I watched froth come out of his mouth. This is something completely different. It's quite raw, but it's also really, really personal. And from that sort of personal touch and that, very honest and raw memory, you would then be able to see what the grounds of their motivation is. But it needs to kind of lead into more detailed scientific thinking. So this sort of, it explains it, and yes, it's something that, if I read it as an admissions tutor, I wouldn't forget that very quickly. But it doesn't then link it into medicine and medicine in a higher academia environment.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, sorry, I went too far there. Okay, so we're going to go into law. So reading the book Eve Was Framed by Helena Kennedy has also been fascinating, as I have started to think about issues which I had never before considered. How law might be affected by gender. Since watching 2 documentaries about jails in Miami, Florida, I have also become interested in the differences between the British and American legal systems. Eve Was Framed is probably one of the most overused books in law personal statements. Please try to avoid using very, very overused, over debated, over talked about books, which pretty much anybody could read. The same goes with, for example, This Is Going to Hurt. It's one of the bestsellers in the medicine. Everyone's read it. You kind of need to go a little bit further than that. The other error with this personal statement is that they talk about this book and then they go on to talk about jails and the differences between the British and American legal systems. Don't talk about American law for a UK law degree. And also try not to kind of jump around from one subject to the other. Had this personal statement gone on to talk about law and how it's affected by gender and why that has influenced their decision to apply, brilliant, but they haven't. Okay, another one. Many of Plato's proposed solutions to these flaws undermined what are viewed today as personal rights. This led me to reflect on how laws protect us and also how their intricacies create a doctrine to which people adhere, both complying and incorporating it in their own morality. Investigating Plato's ideal political system, I considered the contrast between how his laws were devised and their status in our own society. Plato's guardians, not unlike our own judiciary, were relied on both to codify and interpret the law. While their decisions were considered to be benevolent, society was expected to conform to laws dictated by a separate class. Okay. It's interesting, however, it's very essay. It's very essay style. As a reader, I have almost forgotten that this is a personal statement and that it's actually an essay about Plato and his ideological political system. Remember to take important writers, really seriously. But you've got to also find the right balance. So they start very well, in combining the research and the reading that they have done on Plato and his political system and why that has impacted them and their decision to study law. But it then goes on a little bit too far and the reader will switch off. It doesn't become personal and they end up kind of sounding a little bit like a smart mouth. So it doesn't really do any favors. It's wasting characters. Another one. Outside my studies, I have many interests, with tennis being my favorite sport. I'm also a keen golfer, rugby player and cricketer. I find endurance events to be a good test of my self-will, so I often compete in biathlons and ran a 20-mile race for charity. Holy moly. It's brilliant that this person is so sporty, but they have mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sport things in the space of 3 sentences. Very difficult to know if they are just listing or, many interests. Tennis is his favorite sport, but then, so I don't know if this is a he or just a he, but then they don't go on to talk about tennis any further. Competitions, maybe a ranking or some aspect of club play or school representation, for example, something like that. They actually then go on to talk about 5 other sports. So that's very difficult to kind of create this vision of somebody. It's easy to say, I like watching DVDs, I like going for a run, I like the gym. Great. It's too much. It needs to be a little bit more focused.
Yeah, I think for me, that one, it's like each line matters so much. You're so limited, and when you actually write the statement, you'll find out how much you actually need to cut down. And that seems like such a waste of kind of 3 sentences where he could have just drilled down on, his tennis. What does he do? What kind of aspects does that help him within, how he would apply it to his application? So it's an odd one.
Music has coloured my historical studies. For example, I played various, I'm going to try and pronounce this, Shostakovich Symphonies coinciding with my study of Stalinist Russia at GCSE, each with a very different feel depending on his relationship with Stalin. But perhaps most moving was his playing his 10th Symphony, a purely self-indulgent expression of relief after the death of the dictator. It is impossible to appreciate this great work without its historical context, which transforms the piece into something personal, attaching the listener emotionally. This is much, much better. So this is a kind of, as you can see, it links the subject, your subject area or subject that you're applying to, and your hobby. So we know that they love music, or that they love playing music. We know that they've played the 10th Symphony. We also know that, okay, they are, they're very likely a history applicant, and they're linking the two together. So, it's a really, really nice example, and it's also really quite personal. That it talks about, well, it's colored my life, it's colored my my studies in history, and you can really feel their love and their passion for it, and their understanding of this subject area. Okay, another one. So this one we picked for a reason that you'll see in a moment. I am active member of the school community, playing first 11 football and being a school prefect. I am on the committee of the school's Economic Society, where I invite and have the opportunity to discuss with influential professionals in their respective fields. Firstly, it's littered with grammatical mistakes. I am active member is not good English. Also shortening, so this sort of first and numericals is not advised. And it's just a mishmash of things. Also, stating what an economic society does is a waste of two lines there, and a lot of characters. Please appreciate that your admissions tutor reading your personal statement will know what an economic society does on a day-to-day basis. So actually what you need to discuss is if that's your love, or if you created the economic society, why did you create it? What did you do in it? Was there, perhaps a speaker that influenced you in your decision in the society, or was there a debate that took place? Something a little bit more substantial than stating the obvious. And these are really small mistakes, but they become really, really obvious when you're reading it back. So please be careful. Okay, so this is actually an okay one. With a genuine zeal for the subject and an ability to relate my studies to the real world, I am convinced that I will thoroughly thrive at degree level economics. Okay, this is okay. It's a pretty bog standard conclusion. It's something that wouldn't really sign off any personal statement. It just rounds it off nicely. I think every applicant is convinced that they will thoroughly thrive at degree level in the subject that they're applying to, otherwise they wouldn't be applying to it. So that's nothing new. Again, it's that it's the vanilla sentence. I'm going to do great. Okay, yeah, so will everyone else. So what sets you apart from that? Okay, we're going to move into SAQ. So SAQ. So this is only for Cambridge. Oxford doesn't require them, and in fact doesn't request them. They are not mandatory. It's the SAQ is voluntary, and it's mostly demographic information that they ask you to complete. But there's also a mini personal statement that is, I believe, 300 characters, Addy?
That one's 1200.
1200, thank you.
Yeah.
So how to write, what to write in your SAQ. So it will ask you for obvious fields to complete, but it also gives you the opportunity in that mini essay that we mentioned on time or space to basically include more detail about why Cambridge. That doesn't that perhaps won't quite fit into your UCAS personal statement, because don't forget your UCAS personal statement goes to all the universities that you apply to under your UCAS reference. So this is a chance for you to add that little bit more about why exactly Cambridge, why that subject in Cambridge. Talk about very specific aspects of the course that you're keen on. So do your homework, do your research. Who are the admissions tutors? Who are the tutors that teach you? Is there anything that Cambridge teaches, or the research perhaps that Cambridge undertakes in your subject area that is relevant to your interest? However, I must stress, please do not pretend that you have an interest in any research that Cambridge does when you don't, because the last thing that you want to do is paint that picture of yourself and it's totally untrue, and then you go to interview and they'll ask you about that particular field of research and you won't have a clue, and your own passion for it just won't shine through. But don't stress too much. Again, this isn't going to make or break your application. We do get quite a few questions from students, about, oh, well, should I complete my SAQ or shouldn't I? And our response is always, well, why wouldn't you? If you were given an additional opportunity to explain and to explain your application and your love and you choosing Cambridge, then why wouldn't you do it? It's not going to hurt you, but it can help you. And so here is an example. So I wanted to add this in. I've only put one example in, but I think it sort of gives you a really good idea overall. And this is actually all of them are real life examples, but this is one that was submitted to Cambridge a couple of years ago. So since I was selected for a visit to Cambridge in year 10, I've been attracted by the high quality education it offers. This inspired me to return twice in the past year to learn more about the exact content and style of the course, and to ascertain that it was the right choice for me. The tripod system really appeals to me. The natural sciences course will allow me to gain a full grounding in biology, chemistry and maths, while not comprising the level of depth in later years, a feature unique to Cambridge. This flexibility will enable me to pursue the field which best suits my interests and abilities, as I will be able to make a more informed choice about my specialisations once I have studied the sciences to a higher level. It would be a privilege to take part in supervision with an expert in the field. Through these small group sessions, I would learn about the topics in much more depth and receive lots of individual feedback, allowing me to maximise my potential. So the author states, she establishes exactly why she's particularly interested in the Cambridge course at the very beginning. This is a really important addition, because the SAQ is that opportunity to explain why Cambridge over anywhere else. They also write, how often they've visited Cambridge, and demonstrates that they've also researched the course, so they know, what the natural sciences tripos looks like, and how it's taught. And that's actually really important, because it proves that the dedication of the applicants, and they haven't just applied at a whim and just gone, oh, Oxford, Cambridge, yeah, Cambridge, let's go for it. So that's the kind of, they're talking about the course structure. And they also explain why they believe that they're suited for the Cambridge course. Although the author will be sort of tested at interview as to whether or not really they are best suited for Cambridge's teaching method, and they do the same in Oxford, it's useful for the reader to know that the student already believes that they are, so they've done that research. They also mention a little bit later that they could mention a little bit later, or adjusting it slightly, about certain interests that they have. You can kind of link back your personality that you've shown in your personal statement with your SAQ, because Cambridge will receive both copies, so you can kind of link it together. So that's just an example of a really, really short chunk of an SAQ. I'm going to hand you over to Addy now. Who's going to talk about how we support the students through this this stressful period, and then we'll go through the chats and the Q&As, and I saw a raised hand as well, so we'll then open up the floor.
Absolutely, thank you very much. There's some really nice questions in the chat, so just keep them coming and we'll answer them all at the end. But yeah, I'm just here to talk a little bit about how we actually support the students and how we deliver the high success rate that we actually manage with Oxbridge. So if you haven't already, if you look over on our website, you'll be able to find out a little bit about our premium programs, which is the main way that we really support students with their applications and how we're able to sort of triple your chances of success. And that's something we're really, really proud of. So it's split up into 4 kind of main categories. The first of which is one-to-one tuition. So this tends to be the most valuable that students find because they get one-to-one support, individual support from a tutor who's already been through the process before. They've passed it with flying colours and they've helped lots and lots of other students do the same thing. So yeah, that's a really key part of the programs. The tutors tend to be either current students or recent graduates who, like I said, have already kind of been through the same path that the student is walking down. So they're really well placed to actually prepare you. So you can use that across a variety of different application components. As we're coming up to kind of the admissions test and interview, that's where a lot of students are using their time at the moment. So I think on the next slide, we've got a little kind of example of what a tuition session could look like after you've actually had the session. So they tend to be about an hour long. And after each one, you'll get basically like a little reflection sheet. It's a report that talks about what you went through on that session, what you think you need to improve on, or what the tutor thinks you need to improve on. Any homework, and often there is quite a lot of homework because it's an intensive application, but it's the best way to kind of improve is to do all these extra little things to make sure that you're fully prepared. So this is the kind of thing that you would get after each and every session that you get with our program. The second part would be the resources. So we're really proud to say that we've written about 90 books. I know that number's probably gone up a little bit even since I've thought about this last time, Barbara. But yeah, we've written 90 books on the application process, not just on one subject, that's across many, many subjects. But you get access to every single one of those, along with lots of online courses that are recorded by tutors who've been through the process. And all of this is kind of on our prep portal, which I think, well, I feel like I'm behind it a little bit, so I'm very, very proud of it. But this is our prep portal, and this culminates everything from your program into one sort of easy to access place. So, if ever you're looking and thinking, I need to start preparing, I need to start revising, well, this is where you'd start, and everything you kind of need is on there and available for you to use without too much hassle, or that's the idea anyway. So so the third bit is something that's actually really unique to UniAdmissions, and I think something that truly sets us apart from any other kind of provider that offers any kind of support, which is our enrichment. This is really important because while the admissions tests and interviews are very, very important, one part of the application that they kind of talk about at Oxford and Cambridge is having wider knowledge and wider appreciation for the subject, and that's something that's really, really difficult to develop. To revise for, basically, you need to develop it over time, and that's what the enrichment sessions do. They promote sort of deeper academic thinking that goes far beyond the kind of curriculum into university level kind of thoughts, and discussing and talking about those as you would at university level, as opposed to just being kind of lectured as you would at school. So this is something that all of our students really, get a lot of enjoyment out of, and it helps them craft their personal statement because, we talk about the books that are really overused throughout the personal statement, and then, talking about things in your interview. Well, if you don't have the resources in the back of your mind about that, then it's very difficult to kind of stray off the beaten path. So that's what these will really help you do, and they'll get you prepared for, any eventualities when it comes to your interview and writing a strong personal statement. And the final bit, if we go on to the next slide, would be our day courses. So there's actually a course upcoming this Sunday, I believe, for quite a few admissions tests. So there's far more courses within the program, but we just have one coming up on Sunday. So these are full day courses that led by expert tutors. They're pretty intensive. I think I've seen a lot of students with sweaty brows leaving them, but they're a really good way of just diving headfirst into what you need to do. And a lot of students, you'll come out feeling much more confident and better about your application. So you can put your revision that you'd be using through the portal into practice with kind of mock interviews and test preparation. And again, that all kind of culminates on the day. So yeah, it's a really good intensive way of sort of springboarding your application, depending on what the course is actually about. So like I said at the beginning, the reason we do all of this is because it does genuinely work. Over the last 3 years, we've had an average success rate of 61%. The average Oxbridge admission rate is about 18%. So we have a cheeky slide on the next page, which kind of compares us versus private schools, which are meant to be, very well versed to provide the kind of best level of education. And actually, you can see even Eton College, Westminster, they kind of hover between 21 to 31%, whereas we're consistently year on year able to hit about a 60% admittance rate. And this is largely in part due to how we do things. We approach the application we don't really recommend that someone just read a book or just attend a course. It really has to be a structured syllabus that ties everything together, because without all the components, you're really going to struggle to make some strong headway in your application against the highly competitive nature of all the applicants, because everyone has very strong grades. A lot of people tend to do well for the admissions test, but how do you set yourself apart? That's kind of what we focus on, amongst making sure the baseline and the foundations are all strong. So when we actually come to looking at our students, there is no one-size-fits-all approach, and that also comes for our students as well. So there's a type of student that works best for us and gains the most out of the program, and the kind of students that we like to work with have to be driven. They've got to be genuinely motivated, genuinely passionate about their subject, and they've got to want to learn more. So attitude tends to be a lot more important than achievement, and you'll find that even admissions tutors will be kind of looking for a similar student in terms of the characteristics that they're looking for, and this is why we look for the same. So yeah, we'll always choose a motivated student with slightly lower grade over someone who's extremely intelligent but lazy and not really willing to put the work in. So yeah, that's always going to be a bonus for us. And then yeah, the final bit, I guess, is the student honour code. So when we talk about a structured syllabus, everything that we offer, none of it really will work unless you put the time and effort in. So the lesson reports that you get after tuition, that only really makes a difference if you do the homework, if you look at the areas of improvement and actually look to address them. And you can do that through your tutor, you may do that through the courses or any of the other resources, but you have to look at where your weak areas are, and we'll help you identify those. But you've got to have the honour within yourself as a student to make sure that you're going to do everything that you can to address them alongside our support. But yeah, part of that is just making sure that you use everything that's available to you, and it allows the tutors to focus on what really matters, as opposed to kind of working through these little issues that you should be able to resolve yourself. And we're always at hand to help with any issues, of course, but that's not the best way to get the most out of the program, which is kind of why we talk about this honour code. And yeah, so it is an investment, but in order to make that investment a little bit feel a little bit safer when we come up past sort of the 1st of October now, because the timeline is shrinking very rapidly, we offer a cooling off period. So if any time within, I think it's 5 days at this point, or within your second tutoring session, if you're not happy with the program, then you can get a refund, and you just have to go through the process, and we'll kind of walk you through that. But often we rarely see this kind of come into effect. So a lot of students and a lot of parents are very happy with kind of what we do. If there are any issues, then yeah, we're more than happy to kind of work through them with you. But like I said, it's a fairly rare occurrence, but it's just something that we put in place to alleviate any concerns that you may have when it comes to this, because obviously it's an important decision to try and make, and not one that you want to take lightly either. And yeah, so I don't know if you've spoken to other parents, you may have heard of a few other things, but I'm going to keep saying the word proud because we are very, very proud of what we do. But, you know, we've had loads of really, really lovely comments from people, students and parents who've been on the programs in the past. And, you know, these always warm my heart when they come in. So it's nice to shout about them when we have an audience to talk about them too. So, yeah, we've got lots of really, really positive reviews. You can always check us out over on Trustpilot if, you know, you do have any concerns at all. But, yeah, we're really confident in kind of what we offer. And it turns out that people tend to be quite happy with it as well. And the second to final bit, so we understand that it is an investment, but not everyone, you know, has the means to make that investment, unfortunately. But we never really wanted to be, you know, money shouldn't really be a factor in terms of academic success. And Oxford and Cambridge are very much about that, and you know, we completely are behind that as well. So that's why we set up the foundation. We've been growing as a company year on year. And we were founded in 2013, and ever since then, we've been doing our best to provide as much kind of bursary support. So we call it the foundation for students who don't have the financial means to necessarily get the support that someone else may be able to get. But our aim by the end of 2022 is for every single student that actually works with us on a paid kind of program. We're hoping to give away one place as well, and we've made some real headway towards that. I know Barbara's almost champion in this one, so yeah, we're aiming to get 250 students by the end of this year. I think we're getting pretty close to that number. But yeah, we're going to be pushing that number higher and higher each year, and maybe even go above the 1-to-1. That'd be a lovely thing to do. So yeah, maybe that's a 2023 goal, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, we work a lot with other access projects, like literally the Access Project, for example, and access societies across the universities on a year-by-year basis. So, and that's not just Oxbridge. It's, for example, medical societies and Imperial, UCL, King's, and they also ask for our support, and we're more than happy to give it. There are, if you are interested in the bursary, there is a bursary section on the website that you can go to that explains exactly how it works and what the eligibility criteria is for them. And if it's something that your school might be interested in, then again, you can give them your school's details to us, and or vice versa, and then we can help even more students. So we do that as well. We work with quite a few schools who are in Acorn and polar areas.
Yeah, absolutely. It's truly dear to our hearts. But yeah, so please pop those in. The next bit, so if you are interested in all things Oxbridge, as we are, we've got a really interesting podcast, which is done by the founder, which is Rohan, and someone who's worked with us for a very long time called Will. So this is a Cambridge and Oxford graduate. So Rohan's Cambridge, Will's Oxford. And it's quite interesting to see both sides of the same coin. So they talk through, you know, the collegiate system, what it's like to actually be at Oxbridge, the kind of myths and legends and things that you may have heard, probably, you know, more far-fetched than they should have been, but, you know, that's what happens with these kind of institutions. So, you know, if you want to learn a little bit more about Oxbridge straight from the horse's mouth, this is a really good thing to listen to, and we have a lot of fun putting it together as well. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, that takes me on to the very final bit before we move on to the Q&A. So we've got some really nice questions coming in. If you're interested to speak to any of our team to see how we may be able to support you, or if you've got any questions or anything like that, all you need to do is just pop onto the website, and you can book a consultation. It takes literally less than 20 seconds, depends how fast you can type, I suppose. But you just click on that thing in the bottom left, and it will come up with a beautiful little widget. You just pick a time and date. And then, yeah, one of our admissions consultants will give you a call at that time and talk through any questions that you might have. So really, really easy to do. If you are interested, then yeah, it doesn't take long to do. So feel free to pop one of those in. Cool. So on to the Q&A, Barbara.
Yeah, we'll start with the chat bits first,
Sure.
and then I'll move us over to the Q&A. So yes, so let me just find the, okay, so for an international applicant who's applying only to one single university, say Oxford, can the personal statement be university specific? Yes, yes it can. So if you are only applying to the one university and you know that that's the only university that will receive your personal statement, yes, you're more than welcome to. Supposing that I'm applying to a humanities subject, for example, theology and philosophy, can I say a bit about my background as in the country that I belong to, various communities I interacted with since childhood helped me shape the opinion about religion and society I hold today. Yes, if that is your drive and what has created or helped develop your passion to go on and study theology and philosophy, you should absolutely be mentioning it.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't mention where you're from for the sake of saying that, but if it's a factor in shaping why you're applying for that subject, then yes, you should.
Yeah, I think for me that's the definition of a personal statement. If it's like Barbara said, if it shapes why you want to do something, then yeah, it completely makes sense to talk about it.
Mm. Andrew, this example is very specific about Cambridge, and while it looks decent to me, wouldn't it be a bit of a problem when reps of other unis read it? I think we were on the SAQ section at that point, which is why it was Cambridge specific. So the SAQ, only Cambridge see the SAQ, and it's a slightly different. It doesn't go into the UCAS into the UCAS application. It's done via Cambridge. We'll come to the raised hand in a moment. Sorry, I'll just go through these first. Do we have a package for personal statement alone? Meaning, if a student needs guidance only on the PS, does UniAdmissions support it? Yes, we have. So all of our programs are tailored. What you can do is, in the little presentation that on the slide we're showing now, it's showing you how you can book a consultation with one of our admissions consultants. The consultation is free, so please don't worry. I've had a few questions asking that this week. They are completely free, and the consultant will go through your application with you, where you are, your progress, how you're feeling about it, and then they will basically create a program for you that's based on what support you require. We can support just personal statement alone, but always remember that the personal statement is such a small part of your application as a whole that we do recommend that you do really focus on admissions tests if you have them, and 100% on the interviews, because they are vital. If you think that you're eligible for the foundation program, I'm going to pop the link into the chat for you in a moment so that you can find how to apply. Which IB subjects would you recommend for law? Good question, Begna. That really varies, and it depends also on the universities that you want to apply to. We always recommend that you take a look at the university and the law department's application requirements, depending on which unis you want to read law in.
Yeah. I think essay writing subjects are always going to be important, and then obviously subjects that kind of help you define or create arguments, or not create arguments, but talk through arguments are always going to be helpful.
Yeah, humanities over mathematics is always a good one for law. Geeta, do you have to book the full premium pro package up front, or can you book in blocks, i.e. enrichment and then day courses followed? Okay, so Geeta, if you speak to the admissions consultants, they do have various programs and options for you, and we do also offer payment programs, so in installations as well. So there's all sorts of different options available to students. We understand that everybody's support needs are different, and that's something that we explore in the phone call with you. Addy, shall we move over to the Q&A? Oh, there was a raised hand, but it seems to have gone.
Yeah, I think we just had one more coming through the chat. So when did the enrichment sessions start for the 2022 application? So they run for the entire year. So they're not going to be for 2022 specifically or 2023, because they're not based on the application. They're more based about wider reading. So whenever you join onto a program, they're always going to be relevant, and you can always go backwards as well. So we provide all the recordings, all the kind of the PDFs, the materials that come with it. So yeah, there's no 2022 specifically, but yeah, they'll be relevant always.
We have another one. Can I bring up questions that have popped up in my mind in the process of reading a few scholarly works and try addressing them in the personal statement, as long as that concerns the field of my study? I would caution you against using a few scholarly works. If there's one or two in particular that relate to a topic or a subject or a theme in your subject area that most the most interests you, then you are absolutely welcome to reference them, but it has to be relevant to why you want to study that subject. So trying to address questions that you've read, or things that you've read from some articles, from some academic articles. Be careful, that's going to turn into an essay.
I would also say that you want to make sure that you've explored and kind of tried to find the answers to those questions yourself as well, rather than just kind of bringing up the question, because that's not really going to do you any good in your personal statement. But if you're showing the academic thinking beyond that, then that'll be more helpful. But yeah, I would keep it quite concise if you can.
Okay, we're going to move into the Q&As. So if anyone has any more questions, if you could pop it into the Q&A rather than the chat, so we don't leave you behind. Okay, international. Oh, we've lost it.
That was already answered up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Do you provide services to review personal statements and give feedback? Yes, we do. It's part of the service, it's part of the program. We offer personal statement reviews with quite detailed feedback. We don't rewrite them. That's your responsibility, and it's also the responsibility of the student to decide what feedback they want to take on board and what they don't. We also offer support in reviewing essays as well. So if you have an admissions test that has an essay section, or with some subjects where you don't have an admissions test but you have to submit essay work, then we support that too. Can we mention a specific admissions tutor on the SAQ if we were inspired by them? I'm guessing you're asking like in the course or something similar. Please do not mention an admissions tutor if you just want to name drop and you've never met them or have nothing to do with them, or you really don't care about the research or the subject that they're doing in hope of gaining their favor when they are reading your personal statement. It will not work. You have to have a real wish, as if that admissions tutor's research just so happens to be the same area that fueled your passion to apply for the subject, then great. But please do not name drop. Do not name drop. It's the worst thing. Just don't do it.
I think there's a risk here when it comes to Cambridge as well, that if you talk about someone who's actually done this research, they could actually end up interviewing you. And if you haven't done the research or you aren't genuinely interested, you put yourself in a very sticky situation at that point. So yeah, be very, very careful. But by all means, if you are interested and it's relevant, then yeah.
Yeah, God, the last thing you'd want to do is get to interview and then they're your interviewer. That's like a nightmare. Ellie Reese, should we talk about why we want to study at a specific Cambridge college in your SAQ? If you are applying to a particular college and you're not doing an open application, absolutely you are welcome to, but don't forget that your SAQ is not based upon your college, but based upon the subject that you want to apply to.
It's important as well that if you do not make it into your initial college and you do get pulled and you get accepted to a different college, it might come across detrimental to that college. So it may be detrimental overall to actually talk about a specific college there.
It is, of course, your own personal choice. So it's up to you at the end of the day. The university, the admissions, I have popped that in for you into the chat. Okay, anonymous. I want to study natural science at Cambridge, so I mentioned genetics and neuroscience in my personal statement, but other universities such as Durham and Edinburgh do not have neuroscience in their course. Do you think this would disadvantage me? Without seeing your full personal statement, it's really difficult. You mentioned genetics and neuroscience. Why do you mention two, and how do they link? It's not necessarily a disadvantage to you because you are showing that you have an interest in the biological natural sciences, which Durham and Edinburgh would also provide. Just because they don't necessarily do a module or a subject focus area on neuroscience, it won't kind of bring a disadvantage to you. You're still explaining why you want to do natural sciences.
Yeah. I think as well, this is a really good example of where the SAQ comes into play as well. So you can talk about your specific subjects that you've studied and that are applied only to Cambridge, and that's where you can hone in your personal statement. So it's an extra 1,200 characters for you to work with. So if you kind of view it in that regard, you'd probably put it in the SAQ if you don't want to alienate the others.
Yeah, absolutely. And just be careful because genetics and neuroscience, whilst there are some links, just make sure that you can kind of come full circle with both of those topics. Was the example shown for the SAQ how much one would write, or just a section? It was just a section. So actually their SAQ goes on to talk about a book. I think it was a particular book that they had read. I think actually it was Darwin's, one of Darwin's literature, and they go on to talk about a little bit about something that interested them in within that literature. So yes, it was just a section, don't worry. You can write as little or as much as you like in the SAQ, but we do recommend that you use the SAQ. How important is extracurriculars in the personal statement? Will you be disadvantaged if you don't put any in the personal statement?
So I think this one depends more on the subject. So for medicine, for example, if you don't really have any work experience in there, that counts as extracurricular. That is going to be quite a disadvantage because they have to see that you're willing to put in the time and effort. You understand what kind of degree and what kind of career choice basically you're getting yourself into. For other subjects, it won't matter quite as much. But again, it's about that wider knowledge or wider reading aspect side of things. If you're able to get something in there that's more relevant to your application, it's always going to be beneficial. So try and find something. So, it could be reading, it could be a sports club, it could be some debate club, economic society. So, yeah, it's hard to say whether you'd be disadvantaged. You probably will, but more so for other subjects than others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's also important for an admissions tutor to know that you're not just all about academics. You are someone who has interests and drives outside of academia. You're not going to stick your head in a book and that is all that you do day in and day out. It's not all about just schooling and learning.
Yeah.
Okay, is it necessary to state something along the lines of I want to do X course at university? Because no. In short, so remember that your UCAS application goes to all of the universities that you apply to within your application. So for example, if you're applying to Oxford and to Durham, and you say I want to do law at Oxford because, and Durham receives it, then it's not very nice read for Durham. So it's not something that you particularly really want to do. Remember, it's you want to go into higher academia at the universities that you are selecting because you love the subject that you're applying to. So try to kind of keep it to that. Yeah,
I think as well, there's no point kind of using that sentence because if they see your personal statement, they know you want to apply anyway. So it's a waste of few characters.
Yeah, it's also stating the obvious. How much does it cost to access the tuition in the premium program? We have various program structures and investment structures. Yeah, sorry, structures twice. But the best, we can't answer that for you immediately. I have no idea, what your level of preparation is, where you are, what you're doing. So if you book yourself a consultant appointment on the website, or you can call us, the little number at the top of the 0208 068 0438 +44 at the end if you're international, then the team will be more than happy to support you, go through that with you, and give you a quote at the end.
Yeah.
How important is having a personality and presenting yourself as a person to Oxbridge tutors in the personal statement? It's really important. You need to come across as a person. You need to be able to express yourself, and it's they need to know who you are from reading a few paragraphs. That's the first indication that they'll ever have of you. The next indication will be your GCSE results, your predicted grades, and your admissions test results. Those are all very much numerical. unless you have an essay writing section. But even then, that's still, you know, you're writing academically. The next time they will get to see your personality will be at interview. So it's the first step. You need to show who you are. You need to write as you would speaking to them.
Absolutely.
What changes would you make to a personal statement if you're taking a gap year and applying during that gap year, such as adding an explanation for what you chose to do during the gap year? So generally, students who take gap years and then apply or reapply in some cases, most of the time they will go and find work experience, or courses, or go and get involved in some aspect of the subject area that they're really keen in applying to. It's important at that stage to say that, you know, that's what you've done. So what did you do in you know, I spent 12 months in Cambodia looking after, you know, or supporting a local hospital in a village, or, you know, whatever. Or I spent 3 months in a care home in the UK because, you know, I wanted to do this. So yeah, absolutely, you should be utilizing, if you're taking a gap year, you should be utilizing it in a way that you want to, and in a way that would hopefully better your application, and also your I guess your understanding and your passion for the subject.
Yeah, I think as well the ratios that we kind of provided earlier, so I think it was like introduction about 6 lines and then academic 22 to 27, those are all really dependent, so it's going to be very personal to you. So if you've done more on the extracurricular side, you might want to shift a little bit less on the academics and more on the extracurricular to address everything that you've done in that year off. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt, and make it applicable to you. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you know, if you want to spend your year as a ski bum in a chalet, knock yourself out, maybe don't write about it in your personal statement, but have a great time. Then what stage do you suggest to start our process? Your son is in year 12 at present. Okay, brilliant. So Jen, we have students with us who start as early as year 9, year 10, year 11 and year 12. We have various different support and program guidelines for them. In year 12, it would be very much focusing on their subject areas, you know, defining exactly what they want to study. A lot of students at that stage are still very uncertain. You know, there's a lot of options out there for them, and we give them the tools, you know, the tools and the guidance to make those decisions and start preparing for them. And that includes, you know, wider reading, debate ability, writing ability. It really depends again on like the subject areas the subject area that your son would want to apply to. But yes, we do have students from as early as year 9 with us.
We tend to find as well, it's when it comes to your application, it's much more of a marathon than a sprint. It's not something you can cram. So the earlier you start, the earlier the better. Pretty much it'll always improve your application if you start thinking about it earlier on, because you start making changes to how you do things to make it all correct.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started my work experience on an archaeological dig when I was in year 10, because I was already so adamant that that's what I wanted to do. And my parents were very uncertain. My father wanted me to study engineering and I was very against that. And so I went to a dig, and actually I went to a dig for quite a few summers, just to, you know, make sure, really understand, and then worked in a museum and all that kind of stuff. So the earlier that you immerse yourself in that kind of that world and that environment, and the next step into academia, the better.
Yeah.
Will you give guidance to students who need personal support? Yes, absolutely. We give guidance to students who need personal statement support. We have the editing service that we've mentioned. We also have students who sit with their tutors on a one-to-one basis, and kind of go through it with them. And we also have the personal statement guide and the medical personal statement guide as well, which offers kind of insight examples and things like that. You have the Personal Statement Academy in the portal as well, which guides you through the beginning, the initial stages, the first 2 drafts of your personal statement. And we recently finished the last personal statement intensive course, but it is all viewable. We record it and it's all available on all the students' portals as well. So you have a huge amount of resource available to you for personal statement support. In terms of the foundation course, if you have only started year 12 and your school is refusing to grant predicted grades, how would you go about the applications? So you can just let us know, that's no problem. You should have your GCSE grades, which we do request if you are applying to the foundation, so make sure you pop them in and just ask your school in their letter of recommendation to us that they explain that they haven't yet given your grades, but perhaps an indication of you know where you might be going and what A-level subjects you have selected. So I hope that helps. You're thinking about studying German and beginners Russian at Oxford. I've been advised to give examples of books read in German. How many examples do you think I should give? Can the examples be from the same author? Okay, so Nia, good question. Remember we're going to pull you back to the beginning again and remember as to why you want to study German and Russian in Oxford. So why those two languages? What's making you pick those? For example, you know, if German is your mother tongue, I don't suggest that you use that as the reason why. You know, there are lots and lots of students who can say the same thing. It's not going to do any favors, the application. But if there's something about the German language, or you know, maybe European languages, or the Germanic branch of languages that you enjoy, something in the style of it, or I don't know, the structure of it. So yes, giving examples of books read in German is absolutely fine, and you know, might potentially be expected. But again, which books? So it's not so much having this, you know, that they come from the same author or they come from different authors. It's the subject area that you've read that's fueled your passion to want to apply to study German and Russian. You know, so kind of think of it in a different way, and try to answer it like that. I hope that helps. I don't know what you're asking for there with the WhatsApp number, so thank you. You are confused as to which college to choose for economics and management at Oxford. Can an open day be conducted in that regard?
So we do have lots of guides and things about the different colleges that you could apply for at Oxford. Ultimately, it's, you know, if you want to make an open application versus a specific college one, it may not make too much difference in the end. But I'd recommend you take a look over on our website. I can pop a link for a guides page that talks about each college, and yeah, you can learn a little bit more about them and kind of go from there.
Yeah. We do have a course as well, which we've just finished and recorded. So which has some of our tutors talking about the various colleges at Oxford. It's not necessarily about economics and management. It's also a really good idea to do the homework yourself. Everybody picks a college for all sorts of kind of different reasons. So some people, it might be because they really like sport, or they want to be in the center of town, or they don't want to be in the center of town, or they want just an all-female college. So there's lots and lots of different options available. So it's kind of deciding, you know, seeing, okay, which college has E&M in Oxford available in Oxford, and then narrowing it down from there. But we do have tutors who will help you make that, you know, kind of guide you to your decision as well. But as Addy said, you can always make an open application if you're really uncertain. How would you suggest shortening your personal statement if it's too long? Good question. Yeah. Get someone else to read it is what I would start with. I mean, again, I don't know kind of, you know, how long is a piece of string. I don't know if your pages are pages over, or if you're a few characters over, you know, if you're a few lines over. So it really, really depends kind of what stage your personal statement's at. I'm going to shamelessly say here that you should be using our personal statement editing service to really, really help you in kind of shortening it and defining and kind of refining it. Sorry, not defining it. But yeah, please perhaps get somebody else to read it, a teacher or a peer. They can always help you. It's really difficult. We know how hard it is, that when you start doing your personal statement and then you've got to read it and cut it and read it again and cut it again, you're doing it yourself again and again and again. It becomes so hard to see, you know, the words and the bits that you could cut out or shorten. So another perspective is always a good idea, but just make sure that whoever you are asking is able to do that again, which is why I'm recommending our personal statement service. Begna, my parents are insisting to take biology, but I am planning to take ESS. Do you think it's a good choice for universities like Cambridge and Oxford? Begna, I'm not sure what you mean by ESS. Is that environmental systems?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one either.
I'm guessing it's environmental systems and society. Begna, help us out a little bit, and then we can help you. We're going to move on. You also offer help choosing courses at different universities. Addy, do you want to take this one? And I'm just going to look into ESS quickly.
Yeah, sure. So we can offer support with helping you kind of choose courses that might be relevant. So you could use that as a part of your kind of induction onto the program. You could chat to a tutor who maybe applied to more than just Oxford and Cambridge and find out what would be applicable and what might suit your kind of learning style. So be able to get some nice specific information to figure out where you might want to apply alongside Oxford and Cambridge as well. So I hope that helps a little bit. The next one. So what exactly does Oxford look for in a personal statement? Is it just passion or intellectual capability as well? So correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, but I think Oxford tend to be more on the academic side of things than Cambridge. So if you're looking to apply to, well, you can only apply to Oxford or Cambridge, but if you're looking to gear your personal statement a little bit more towards Oxford, you might want to focus a little bit more on the academic side and really drive home why you've got the intellectual capability to do this course and really thrive in it. Whereas Cambridge, they do still, you know, heavily weight towards the academic side of things, but we tend to find Cambridge are a little bit more about the passion of the subject and the extracurriculars. So just bear that in mind when you're crafting your personal statement for either university.
Yeah, there's an additional bit about this as well, that trying to be smart or over smart won't do you any favors. So what the universities are looking for is that you're teachable. If you go into your personal statement or your interview and you know everything, you know absolutely everything, and you're very certain of that, then the tutor will just think, well, you're unteachable. You know it. That's it. There's kind of no further to kind of develop you or mold you and support you. So yeah, so definitely, you know, show your intellectual capability, but don't be a smart ass.
Yeah, I think that applies throughout in life in general.
Yeah, yes.
So do you help find, select and reflect on extra or supercurricular activities? So that's kind of where our enrichment supervisions come into play. So I'd put them down as kind of supercurricular because it's really about stretching your academic knowledge. We can also kind of help you reflect on what you've already done through the personal statement redrafting and also mock interviews as well. So we can help you, you know, talk about what you've already done and, you know, figure out actually what you've already done. It sounds really stupid to say, but, you know, if you've been at a GP surgery, you've been at a hospital, it's easy to just say that you've done that, but actually you need to figure out and reflect on what you picked up whilst you were there. And we can kind of help draw that out of you a little bit if you're unsure about how to talk about it properly. So actually sourcing it, that's on you, unfortunately, because it does depend on where you are geographically and lots and lots of other little factors. So we wouldn't be able to source any of that. But yeah, definitely talking and reflecting about it, we can definitely support you with.
Yeah, absolutely. We still don't know ESS, so we're gonna hold that one. The more extracurricular activities we have, the bigger advantage we have in our personal statement. Okay, Elaine. So if you recall back to the one to the personal statement snippet where we showed you about the student who mentioned literally 6 sports in the space of 3 sentences, and in their first sentence they stated that tennis was their absolutely most favorite sport, and then they didn't mention it again after that. So that's the disadvantage, is that they mentioned 6 sports and there's really nothing to it. So you need to tie in the extracurricular into what defines you as a person, what's shaped you the most, and what is kind of relevant to your passion for the subject, or into what you've done further in your extracurricular activities, to kind of drive that passion or the experience that the experience that you've had in that field. Don't get me wrong, not all extracurricular activity has to be related to academia. So if you love rock climbing, then that's great. Maybe explain why you love rock climbing, what has it given to you, what have you gone and done about it. That's just an example. But yeah, please don't start listing extracurricular activities. It's not going to do you any favors.
Yeah.
Okay, anonymous. I have 1 month till my entrance exam. Will I still benefit from applying to the foundation program? Absolutely. The more support that you have, the better chances that you will get, as long as you utilize the resources and the support that's given to you. So yes, please do.
Yeah, well, we say earlier is always better. Earlier is always better, but also better late than never. So if you haven't done any preparation so far, it is well worth. You shouldn't just think you're too late to do it.
Do you have any interview skills program for medicine? Yes, we do. Yes, we do, Anne. In short, so again, if you give the consultants a call, they can talk through it with you. Any kind of interview skills vary, or the interview skills program vary. We also are aware that some medical schools like to undertake the mini mock interviews, whereas others will undertake panel interviews. We support both. And we also have our super amazing, it's my favorite time of the year when we run them, the interview courses. They're weekend long, and they are really, really intensive, but just a brilliant way. And they're also part of the program. So yes, we do. Please give us a call, and we can kind of go through into further detail on those elements. Anonymous, I have a lot of information to write about my activities for my chosen course, leaving me little space for my extracurriculars. I want to do justice for my academic activities.
So I think when it comes to this, you probably will find, if you get someone else to read it, that you may have talked about just your academic side a little bit too much. And if you haven't, then that's fine. It might be personal to you. But I would take a good, long, hard look at what you've actually written and how relevant all of it is, and to make sure that you're not just listing and repeating things. So kind of halfway through, each line has to have a pretty big impact, because you don't have many lines to go through. So yeah, I would look at how high priority those things actually are. And if something is a very low priority, you're probably not going to miss it if you admit it. And you kind of you show a better picture of you to the admissions tutor if you show that you have your extracurriculars as well. So it's about being a well-rounded candidate. If you just focus on academics and drill that home, like Barbara said, they'll know you're a very good academic student, but do you have the grit and determination to sit by the course? And that's something that actually might only be highlighted in your extracurriculars. So yeah, try and show yourself as a well-rounded candidate. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, we still don't know that one. So are gap years well regarded for medicine to widen your experience in life? And that's a good question. I mean, we don't have statistics or data to show that it is versus it isn't. It's all about what you utilize, right, in your time. So you can get the same experience if you start early and you don't take a gap year versus if you do take a gap year. So it's all about planning, preparation, and a little bit of luck as well. We know how difficult it is to get work experience in the medical field, especially in the last year when when COVID hit. We know that so many students found it so hard because they couldn't gain access to the hospitals or the GP surgeries or anything like that. And the universities are also very, very aware of that. That they are aware that even this year's cohort and potentially even next year's cohort, depending on where you are, globally, might not have that ability or the access to gain work experience in the medical fields that otherwise pre-pandemic they would have been able to. So that's a really difficult question to answer, but I hope that helps. Apologies. The dog
I'll
has
take that
just
then
come
while the
home.
dog's attacking you.
Sorry, he's just come home from a very muddy walk and he's very happy to see me. So, Anonymous, if I'm in year 13, is it too late? No, it's never too late. Well, until like, you know, the 1st of November, then it is a little too late. But at the moment, no, it's not too late to join the program. You should be at this stage writing your personal statement if you are applying to Oxbridge, because your deadline is the 15th of October, unless your school, some schools I know have an earlier deadline. But even if you've applied or submitted that, we can still support you in the admissions test. And in fact, if you wanted to give the team a call, or if you wanted to stay here afterwards, for anybody actually who is really worried about admissions tests, we have our main intensive course admissions tests course tomorrow. It's going to be held online. If you wanted to join, we can certainly go through that process with you. So at this stage, if you're in year 13, you should be preparing, you know, about 2 to 5 hours every day of study and preparation at this stage. But again, that kind of depends if you have an admissions test as well. So for some people that won't be necessary. But I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Oh, I've done, okay. If the applicant has received lower grades in the chosen subjects in GCSE, but a good predicted score in A-levels and develop good understanding, how will this be seen during the application process?
So this is quite a difficult one, because Oxford and Cambridge do tend to put quite a lot of emphasis on GCSEs, and if you don't have strong GCSEs, the kind of statistics that we've seen, everyone tends to have, you know, very, very high grades across the board here. But if you're able to kind of show that you've had significant improvement, I'd say 6, honestly speaking, probably a little bit low. But, you know, if you do still want to apply and you still have a few other universities and you kind of use Oxford or Cambridge as your top kind of far-reaching choice, then I would go ahead and do that. And as long as you kind of show that you are able to achieve those higher grades and how you're able to do that, if you've got evidence of that through academics that you've been able to achieve, so the predicted scores, if they're much higher than, you know, your GCSEs may suggest, then that will help. But also try and kind of round off your application a little bit more. And although grades may not be your strongest point, you have an opportunity to then, you know, produce a really, really strong admissions test score, produce a really, really strong personal statement, do more extracurriculars to kind of round off yourself a little bit. So it's all a part of the pie. And for you, grades may be, you know, 25% as opposed to 30, but then you've got to make up that 5% somewhere else. So that's kind of where I'd start to work with your grades that you currently have. I hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you,
That's
Eddie.
okay.
I can't figure out how to turn my video back on. I've done something
I'm
silly.
sure people will be missing your face, unfortunately.
Sorry, everyone. I don't know how to turn it back on. I don't know what I've done. Okay, Kenny, I have only read one book, which I included in my personal statement. Does that look bad for me? No, Kenny. If that book is, or the subject in that book is what drove you to apply for the subject that you're applying for, then no, it isn't. Listing books and articles for the sake of doing them isn't going to do you any favors in the long run. So again, you know, if it's that one book that really shows why you're applying for what you're applying for, then that one book should be enough. Can we access the recording to this webinar?
Yes, we'll be sending that out tomorrow. You'll also be able to see all the previous webinars that we've ran, so you'll be able to get a big playlist of those. So if you've got a few days spare, you may be able to go through all of them. But yeah, you'll be getting one.
Perfect. Next question.
So how much is the personal statement editing service? So it's a part of the program, and like we've said, the program is pretty bespoke to your kind of needs. So the best way to find out is just to chat to one of our admissions consultants, and we'll be able to figure out, you know, what that kind of investment would actually look like for you. But like I said, we don't take a single pronged approach, because it's just not the best way of doing things. So yeah, it'd be a part of an overall program. But if you chat to our admissions consultants, they'll be able to help you out with that one.
Is there a guide to Cambridge colleges? Yes, there is. We recently held a Oxbridge College guide course, an Oxbridge College course, sorry, or selection course. And that is available on the portal for all of our program students. And we also have the Ultimate Oxbridge Collection book, which is also available for all of the program students, which goes through, I think, pretty much all of the Cambridge colleges. I think it leaves out one or two, but otherwise they are all there, and they are all from a perspective of a student who is either there or was at those colleges. So yes, yes, we do. How much time should we be spending altogether to prepare for the entrance exams, specifically the NGAR for Cambridge?
So this is quite a tough question to answer because we don't know exactly where you are in your process, but we'd sort of say, I'd say between about 80 to 100 hours if you go through all the kind of, so what we expect of our students is if they read all the textbooks, go through all the practice questions, do the necessary kind of reading and support required to hit what they need in their admissions test, then it'd be sort of between 80 to 100 hours. So it is a lot of time, it's a huge commitment, but in reality, the students who are going to be getting those places have got to be above, you've got to be better than the average and significantly better than the average. So in order to get those grades, it does take a lot of time. So yeah, you'd be looking at least kind of 50 hours, but most likely to be a lot more.
Yeah. Does the extracurricular activity need to be related to the subject that you plan to study? No, it doesn't. In short, so if you are a sports buff or I don't know, a chess champion, or anything like that, anything that kind of gives you a rounded personality that shows that you are doing other things, you're interested in other areas. Absolutely, if there is extracurricular activity that you do, like a society membership, that is relevant to or related to the subject that you're applying to, then yeah, you should absolutely include it, but it doesn't have to be. If you spend every Wednesday afternoon with your, I don't know, with the county football team, then yeah, you should be proud of that and you should include it in your personal statement. For personal statements, for courses like engineering, which we wouldn't have studied before, can we just focus on what engineering's supercurricular activities we have done, or do we need to include elements of maths and physics interests?
Yeah, so I would say, sorry, Barbara, it's going to be similar to medicine. People won't have studied medicine in the past, but actually, biology, chemistry, all of those are highly, highly important, as maths and physics would be for engineering. So that's what they'll be looking for. No one's really studied engineering at pre-university level because you just don't really get the opportunity to. But yeah, the extracurricular, if you've entered like a robotics competition or something like that, that'd be really, really powerful for the admissions tutors to be able to read in the personal statement. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much if you haven't studied a subject that is named engineering to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have taken a gap year this year, is it okay to talk about what you'll be doing in the months after the interview? Yes, I don't see why not. So again, so long as they are related to why you're applying to the subject they're applying to, or what you're going to be doing, you can talk about that. I hope that helps. Addy, anything to add there?
I was going to say, so you have to make sure that you actually go ahead and do it, because if it does come, if it comes up an interview at that point and you haven't done it, then it'll be very tough
really
to talk about.
Yeah.
So just be careful about what you say. But yeah,
please don't fib in your personal statement. It's as bad as lying on a CV. Just don't do it. It'll only take one person somewhere to catch you out, and that'll be it. What is a good set of GCSE grades, 7 and higher in all subjects, or 8 or 9 in the majority? Okay, John, so this is dependent on the subject area or the university that you're applying to. If you take a look at the subject area, at the subject that you're wanting to apply to, it will tell you what the minimum entrance requirements are at GCSE level and A level generally. There are obviously, as Addy mentioned before, various kind of circumstances and situations where a good set of GCSE grades will differ per applicant. But if you look at, for example, again, we don't know which university you're applying to, but the majority of Oxbridge applicants are scoring at 8 or 9. But again, it depends on subject area as well.
Yeah.
Is a month enough for BMAT revision? Well, if a month is all you have left and you haven't prepared yet, then a month will have to do. So it's all about how many hours you're going to put into that month. We do say, and we do warn students that, like Addy said, you know, it's a marathon, it's not a race. But if a month is what you have, then we suggest that you utilize it. So everything is possible. It depends on what level you are at, what kind of BMAT knowledge you have to begin with, your ability to test in the BMAT. And that's the same with any admissions test at this stage that's taken on the 3rd or the 4th of November this year. So yes, it's enough, but you have to be committed. No GCSE results. You come from an American international school, but you do have solid A-level predictions in all 3 subjects. Would you be at a disadvantage? No. So in short, no. The universities have lots of international applicants, and so if you go onto the subject pages, you can see what the equivalent international certification would be to the GCSEs as a requirement per subject and also by university. I hope that helps. Should I mention my EPQ in my personal statement? My EPQ does relate to the study of medicine, and I was wondering as to the best way of discussing this in my personal statement. Does it relate to what you're talking about in your personal statement? Not sure what you mean by that. I know it's a project qualification. So if whatever you chose in your project is related to the subject area that has fueled your passion to study medicine, yes, you can include that. So just make sure it kind of links to tell them about your EPQ. If it doesn't relate to why you want to study medicine, is not a good idea. But if it is, then yeah, absolutely you can.
Yeah.
Can we help to read your personal statement? Yes, Grace, we would be delighted. Again, if you'd like to call our consultants, we can support that through one of our programs with you. We can also offer, the personal statement editing service that we've mentioned a few times as well. So if you want to give us a call or drop us an email, we can help. Grace again, every year, how many international students intake from medicine course in Oxford and Cambridge University? Good question, Grace.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know that Oxford and Cambridge do publish these. So if you just go onto the course page right away, and it'll be able to tell you pretty quickly. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, unfortunately. I know it's quite a small proportion of all the places, so it is highly competitive. So yeah, you've got to really make sure your application stands out if you are applying from overseas.
Yeah, I know it's they only push through about 20. I think it's about 21% or 20% of applications or spaces are reserved, and in medicine it's an even smaller number. But yes, you can contact the admissions department as well. I know also year on year it changes slightly, so it's worth a question, and we have no idea what this year's intake is or the plans to be.
Yeah.
Anonymous attendee, I'm really sorry, we can't help you. We don't know what you mean by ESS. I know that Oxford and Cambridge don't do ESS as a subject. I think they might do it as a module or something like that. But perhaps if you would, I mean, the admissions department at Oxford and Cambridge are really helpful in kind of confirming and helping you with that. Also, if you have to do what drives you. Don't forget that you will be at the university studying said subject for at least 3 to 4 years. So make sure that whatever you pick, you are interested in it, and you can kind of persevere through that time, because it is a long time to study subject area. My college has its own deadline for the UCAS application. If I was to call today, how much time would you need to help me with a personal statement? If you were to call today and you joined our program today and tomorrow, we would be able to get you, sort you out and get you a portal account probably by the close of play tomorrow or early Monday morning, and have your statement reviewed within the next sort of 2 to 5 days. The tutors really are working. We have a great team who are doing the personal statement reviews, and they are all subject relevant teams that look after your personal statement edits, and they know that this period is really stressful, so they are working on them every single day. So yes, we can help you really very quickly. Can UniAdmissions help to stand out my personal statement after reviewing, or is it too late? Help to stand out my personal statement after reviewing. No, so again, I think it's a similar question to the one that I just answered. If you were to, if you wanted to join a program today, we can absolutely get you on board onto the portal, and actually the portal is where you upload your personal statements and your essays and things like that for review, and the team is on hand day in, day out, looking at them and reviewing them. They know that it's a super stressful time for you as students and parents, so they're doing it sort of every single day. So yes, it's not too late. I don't know what your school deadlines are, but if you're working to the 15th of October, you still have time. And that's all of the Q&As. And Addy, we've got some more chat questions.
We do, yeah. We're on a nice square 50 on the Q&A, which I thought was quite nice. So I think we've only got one more chat question as far as I'm aware. So for your Cambridge Medicine application, what additional information is expected in the SAQ, as you would have put most of it in the achievement in personal statement? So basically it shouldn't be replicating what's already on your personal statement, because that would be really boring for them to read and wouldn't really add a great deal of information for them. So you just want to make it really specific to why you want to apply to Cambridge. So if you're already talking about all your achievements, don't list them again. Maybe talk about why the course at Cambridge is, suited to you and your background and how you want to do things, or maybe the collegiate system or the supervisions, and how they would kind of work for you. So yeah, just make it really specific to Cambridge without any duplication. Cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And Laomi, I think we answered your question. I think IBSS. Yes, it was the environmental systems and society. So yes, it really depends on what you want to study. It's a conversation to have with your parents, but just make sure that you're happy in whatever you pick. Super. I think that's everything. If there is anybody who kind of wants to stay behind and go through various programs, you're more than welcome to. We'll try and speak to you on a one-to-one, depending on how many people stay. But otherwise, we recommend our consultants are on hand and ready to take your calls, so you can book consultation or give us a call directly, and they would be delighted to speak to you and your decisions and how you're progressing in your application. We have a question from David King. I heard that the same and only one personal statement will go to the unis. That's correct, David. Yes. So your UCAS personal statement goes to all of the universities that you apply to through your UCAS application. If you mention specific universities in your application, it can be a hindrance, especially when other universities are reading it. So you really it shouldn't be about why you're applying to that university. It should be about why you're applying to study that subject, regardless of the university that you're applying to. It really shouldn't, you shouldn't be choosing your subject area because you want, I wouldn't say, okay, as a student, I want to study in Oxford, so I'm going to pick whichever random Oxford subject that Oxford teaches. That's not the way to do it. You have to go by subject and then pick your universities. You shouldn't be mentioning just Cambridge, for example, in your personal statement. That's the SAQ section, which is only for Cambridge applicants, and it doesn't appear in your UCAS application. It's a separate area for SAQ. So I hope that helps. And we have another one. When's the recording sent, Addy?
Yeah, so we'll be sending that out tomorrow. So if you've missed any part of this, you'll be getting the full kind of session sent across. So that'll be in your inbox at some point tomorrow. So just keep an eye on that if you missed any of it. And I believe that just about wraps things up. So like Barbara said, please feel free to book a consultation. They are free and they are very, very helpful. So all of our admissions consultants really know what they're talking about. So they will be able to give you some kind of practical advice and, you know, may offer you a place to work on a program if they feel it's suited to you. So yeah, we look forward to hearing from you. And it's been really nice chatting to everyone. Very, very one-sided conversation, but yes, it has been nice.
Yeah, David, I know you've got one more question. So can you get in only if you meet the minimum entry requirements and have minimal extracurricular activities? So David, again, we don't know what your application is. So for example, if you're having an admissions test in your subject or not, it's, you know, if you meet the entry requirements, you meet the entry requirements. If you have, you know, the passion and you can show that and the personality through your personal statement, then brilliant. If you are preparing for your admissions test and you're scoring high in mock papers and practice papers you're doing, then great. You know, and if you can prepare yourself for interview. So it isn't, always remember, and we did mention this, you know, that the personal statement is not the be all and the end all of your application. Your entry requirements through your grades at GCSE or the equivalent of, and your A levels or the equivalent of, is more important, as are your admissions test and your interview. So you have lots and lots of other opportunities. But again, if you're not certain, David, you can call our admissions team. They would be very happy to kind of go through that with you in further detail. So yeah. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being with us. It's been a good almost 2 hours. I think we've answered loads of questions. But yes, please do give us a call. We're looking forward to hopefully welcoming you onto one of our programs and seeing you very soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, all, and thank you, Barbara.
Thanks, Addy.
All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
See ya.